The second episode of AEW Collision on TNT draws under 600,000 viewers ahead of the Forbidden Door pay-per-view the following night in Canada. An update and more details on the match between Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay that stole the show this past weekend at Forbidden Door. Jungle Boy Jack Perry will address his heel turn tomorrow night on AEW Dynamite, but Eric Bischoff has been very critical of the former AEW World Tag Team Champion. John Moxley is set to compete tomorrow night on AEW Dynamite against TOMOHIRO ISHII. And speaking of Moxley, eagle-eyed viewers have noticed that his hoodie was altered at Forbidden Door. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. Let's start off talking about the ratings and viewership numbers for the second ever episode of AEW Collision on TNT. Of course, it was just 24 hours prior to Forbidden Door the following night in the same arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So, with the go-home episode of Collision for Forbidden Door, did we see AEW continuing the large number they had in the first episode of AEW Collision at the United Center? Well, not so much. This past Saturday, the second ever episode of AEW Collision aired, featuring CM Punk in an 8-man tag team match, Swerve Strickland against Hiroshi Tanahashi, and much more on the episode, the 2-hour live broadcast on TNT. And in a stark contrast to the impressive rating from the premiere episode, the second show saw a drop, as to be expected, because it's always a drop from a premiere episode. According to WrestleNomics on Twitter, Saturday's Collision had an average of 595,000 viewers overall, with a 0.21 18 to 49 demographic rating. For comparison, last week's AEW Collision did a 0.33 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic and had 816,000 total viewers on average. That's a nearly 27% drop in overall viewers from the first to second episode, with an almost 37% loss in the key 18 to 49 demographic. The demographic drop is roughly on par with the ratings pattern from the opening weeks of AEW Rampage, also on TNT, but in a much more difficult time slot on Friday night, which is usually taped. Now, this week's AEW Collision is set to be taped, with the company filming the show this Thursday in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Collision will still air in its normal time slot on Saturday. The third episode is set to include 3 Owen Hart Cup matches: Roderick Strong versus Samoa Joe, Dustin Rhodes versus Powerhouse Hobbs, and Absolute Ricky Starks versus Juice Robinson. AEW, of course, is currently in the middle of a Canadian tour, with the company's AEW New Japan Forbidden Door pay-per-view taking place in Toronto, Ontario, Canada this past Sunday. In the weeks ahead, the promotion is set to visit Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, Regina, Saskatchewan, and Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, before finishing up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada too. So, what are your thoughts on the ratings and viewership numbers for the second ever episode of AEW Collision on TNT? Is this what you expected? Is the drop-off higher or less than you had previously envisaged heading into AEW's Forbidden Door pay-per-view on the Sunday, 24 hours after the episode of Collision on TNT? Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comments section below. Now, speaking of Forbidden Door, a bit of an update and some backstage details and tidbits behind the match that some people are saying is the match of the year. Certainly the match that a lot of people are saying stole the show at Forbidden Door, and that's Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega. Now, Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega had a match considered by many to be an instant classic at Forbidden Door on Sunday in Toronto, Ontario. Many watching the match, of course, voiced concern over spots in the match and the condition of the competitors that they would be in after a series of moves that many deemed very, very risky. However, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select is reporting that he has been told that both competitors emerged relatively unscathed from the match. In fact, Kenny Omega reportedly told several people backstage he was fine after the match ended. Omega and Ospreay returned backstage after the match to applause and a standing ovation from the match, which received heavy praise from their peers. The match, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, much like the Wrestle Kingdom encounter earlier this year in January, was meticulously planned. Ospreay had mentioned to Fightful in a prior interview that he wanted a second match with Omega to be a lot different, because he felt like at Wrestle Kingdom that Omega got in about 80% of the offense, which is certainly different than what we saw this past Sunday, with Ospreay certainly on the front foot and on the offensive much more often than he was in January, and certainly a much more violent and bloody affair than we saw in the Tokyo Dome as well. So what are your thoughts on the match? What are your thoughts on that? Somehow, some way, they both emerged somehow unscathed. Does that make the match even better in your mind? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on Ospreay versus Omega and the fallout of that match, and when you think the third match in this trilogy will take place. Now, one big story coming out of Forbidden Door was the heel turn from Jungle Boy Jack Perry following his IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match against Sanada at Forbidden Door on Sunday. Jungle Boy Jack Perry had clearly had enough. The young AEW star turned on his partner Hook, nailing him with a lariat as Hook's father watched in horror from the commentary desk. AEW has now announced via Twitter that Perry will appear on AEW Dynamite this week to address his actions from this past Sunday. Earlier this year, following his victory over his former mentor Christian Cage, Perry pledged to win a championship in the singles division before the end of 2023. He has yet to do so, and we're over halfway through the year, while his former tag team partner Luchasaurus, of course, recently captured the TNT Championship on Collision with the help of the aforementioned Christian Cage. While there's been no confirmation as of yet that Hook will appear to confront Perry, the cold-hearted handsome devil will undoubtedly be seeking retribution for Perry's actions this past weekend. At the same time, Perry made it clear that he has his eyes on the FTW Championship, currently held by Hook and created by Hook's father Taz in ECW. The relationship between Perry and Hook dates back to December, when Hook came to Jungle Boy's aid against the Firm on an episode of Dynamite. The duo reunited earlier this year, with Perry even proclaiming that the next several months would be known as the Summer of Jungle Hook. Well, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, does it? Now, one person that's very critical of AEW, but in recent weeks has praised Collision, is former WCW president Eric Bischoff, and he's had some harsh words for Jungle Boy about Forbidden Door. As I mentioned, Jungle Boy Jack Perry showcased an edgier side of his personality at Forbidden Door when he officially turned heel by attacking his tag team partner Hook. While he made Taz so angry he had to leave commentary for the rest of the pay-per-view, it appears that Perry wasn't able to make a believer out of Eric Bischoff. The former WCW boss took to social media during the event to tweet, quote, "Jungle Boy couldn't crack an egg with a hammer. WTF, hashtag Forbidden Door." During the latest 83 weeks, Bischoff elaborated on that, making it clear he was less than impressed by Perry's performance against Sanada. Quote, "He just didn't look believable to me, so much that it actually, I don't want to say it made me embarrassed to be a wrestling fan, but he was out of place. He should have not have been on that show," Bischoff said. "I can't put my finger on it, but he looked not interested, is the way I feel about it." Perry competed for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at Forbidden Door, but Bischoff didn't think his performance made sense on the night. The live reactions weren't as loud throughout that particular match until the heel turn, but it was Perry's body of work that Bischoff didn't enjoy. Quote, "The forearms and some of the things he was laying in there looked like he was trying to not make contact," Bischoff said. "I hope it was just an off night, because if that's an example of some of his best work and him getting up for a major show in front of a huge audience, I don't know, man." Now, obviously, as I mentioned, Bischoff has been a heavy critic of All Elite Wrestling, but in recent weeks he has praised AEW Collision and the presentation on Saturday nights on TNT. So what do you think of his comments about Jungle Boy Jack Perry and his performance at Forbidden Door? Do you agree or do you disagree with the former WCW president? Now, Jon Moxley, he's going to be in action tomorrow night on AEW Dynamite on TBS as well. Following Sunday's 10-man tag team match at Forbidden Door, Jon Moxley and Tomohiro Ishii are set to lock up once more. The company announced today via Twitter that the two will compete in a singles match on tomorrow night's AEW Dynamite on TBS. Sunday's tag match saw Ishii team up with Eddie Kingston as well as Hangman Adam Page and the Young Bucks of the Elite, with the opposite team made up of Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta, Konosuke Takeshita, and New Japan Pro Wrestling Shota Umino. The match came to an end when Ishii pinned Yuta off a brainbuster. Moxley and Ishii have met in singles competition once before during the 2019 New Japan G1 Climax tournament. In that contest, Moxley came out on top after around 20 minutes. The two have also been involved in numerous tag team matches before Sunday night's bout, including a never openweight 6-man tag team championship match earlier this month at New Japan Dominion. The 47-year-old Ishii has been wrestling since the mid-1990s and first performed with New Japan in 2004. He is a 6-time never openweight champion, a 3-time never openweight 6-man tag team champion, and also a former IWGP tag team champion as well. Ishii's involvement in Sunday's match came at the behest of Eddie Kingston, who called on Ishii to step in as a 5th member of his team. Kingston and Ishii are both in the same block of this year's G1 Climax, making it inevitable that the two will lock up in the coming months. It must be said, it has been widely speculated that this was the match that Bryan Danielson was scheduled to be competing in this Wednesday. He did mention he was set to wrestle on Wednesday and he was planning on wrestling Ishii. Of course, he suffered, though, a fractured arm, meaning he's going to be out of action for 6 to 8 weeks. Therefore, it looks like Moxley is stepping in for his Blackpool Combat Club teammate. Finally, speaking of Jon Moxley, it appears that his his hoodie, his attire, was censored this past weekend at Forbidden Door. A weird edit has made it to a Top Stars AEW appearance between a recent AEW Dynamite and Forbidden Door this past weekend. Recently, Moxley has been sporting a Death Jitsu hoodie that embodies the technical wrestling in violent ways mentality of the Blackpool Combat Club. Bryan Danielson has described the Death Jitsu mindset while on commentary on AEW Dynamite. The hoodie also features the motto 0 Fs, which is clearly also representative of the group. Curiously, despite the Forbidden Door show being quite a bloody and brutal affair, an edit was made to Jon Moxley's hoodie as opposed to any of the visceral violence that was seen during the show. A comparison image was shared on Twitter that you can see on the screen right now, showing that on AEW Dynamite, 0 Fs was perfectly acceptable, or at least not noticed, which I think is more likely. However, the expletive was removed when it came to the pay-per-view presentation on Forbidden Door. Moxley, as I mentioned, was on the losing side of that 10-man tag team match at Forbidden Door. Maybe he'll be sporting the Death Jitsu hoodie once again on Dynamite this week, but once again, most likely it's going to be censored. So there you go, guys. It's the latest AEW news for you. Be sure to smash the like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.